Hey y'all, what is up? Now, I know you guys know, say, what's going on? This is not the typical way that I do Tami Talk Too Much, but this time, this is the testimony edition. Yes, the testimony edition. I am so excited about it because I get an opportunity to have the Lord use me to talk about the testimonies and the things that are happening in people's lives. And before I get started with any of that, I want to talk about why I call it a Tami Talk Too Much. I know a lot of people think, why does she call it that? What is going on with that? So real quickly, I'll just tell you about what happened here. When I was a little girl, I'll probably say I was about 8 years old or so, maybe a little younger, but my grandmother had me have this complex. I love my grandmother, so y'all don't come for her, but she had me have this complex about talking too much. I remember making a comment to her when I was a little girl in the grocery store, in a department store rather. And I said to her something about her hair or something or the other. And I said it in front of the cashier. And she was so upset, y'all. She was so mad at me that she told me that I talked too much, that my mouth was going to get me in trouble and I needed to learn how to be quiet and all of that. And my whole life, I didn't realize that I used that as me kind of being silent. I really didn't say too much. I was that person that was at events off in the corner, really didn't talk to many people unless they came up to me and they said something to me. And I was really quick to just answer or what have you and didn't go into much more detail. So the Lord had showed me that was something that was planted in me, a seed that was planted in me a long time ago. But won't he do it? Won't he come around and just change everything up and say, you're going to be speaking for me? And you say, what? So that is why and how I came up with the name Tami Talk Too Much, because now I'm going to be talking too much for the Lord. Everything that he needs me to say, everything that he needs me to do, I'm just going to do it and say it and be proud about it. All right. So today I am super excited. Again, as I said before, we're talking about testimonies. So this is the testimony edition where I actually have a special guest. Everybody say hello. Hello, hello, hello to Tia. How are you?
I'm good. Hello, everybody.
Yes. Listen, the crowd is going crazy for you. Listen, I am so honored that you decided to tell your testimony today. I'm very, very honored. I know when I posted something on my social media and you stated one of your reasons why the Holy One was holy to you and what that meant to you. And that really just touched my heart so deeply. So many of us go through so many different things and we don't get out there and tell the world what God has done for us. And so I wanted to be a platform that has people say, hey, this is what he's done for me. He's a wonderful God. And try him out. Right? Yeah. So I wanted to really get into this and first introduce you and then let everybody know that Tia, her story is a domestic violence story, right? So everybody knows that my story was more a whole nother story. And I had a gamut of things going on with me with my life. And so one edition, I've talked about it on one of the Tami Talk Too Much, but I will talk about that a little bit later. Hopefully we'll be able to get into that in this interview. But yours was a story of overcoming domestic violence. And so I don't want to make light of that at all. And I want you to kind of briefly tell us, like, what happened? Like, did that domestic violence, is that something that started when you dated or did it start later on? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, it did not start when we dated, which talking to others who have been through domestic violence situations, the stories are kind of similar as far as when it actually began to happen. So it actually didn't happen for the first, I'd say, about year that we started dating. It actually happened after we got married, which was a year after we
Oh, wow.
dated. We started dating. So it's a slow process. It's kind of like, you know, someone who is prone to domestic violence, they, the abuser, I would say, they are very strategic in what it is that they do. And normally they capture women or men, because I also want to say that it's not just women that go through domestic violence, men do as well. So that's
Absolutely.
important to state that. What
Absolutely.
happens is it's normally the abuser will get you when you are vulnerable already.
Mm.
So for me, I was already going through something. I had a daughter already when I met him. And a lot of people don't know the situation as far as how we met and how everything transpired. But I had a daughter and I was going through problems with her father, who didn't want to participate in her life. And so
Okay.
he and I became friends. He was actually my boss at work. He hired me for the job that I was doing. I was doing market research. So he
Mm.
hired me for that job. And it kind of started where he would ask me we became friends. He was really nice, very sweet. I would have never thought that he would be the man that got to know him as.
Yeah, that usually happens like that for sure.
Absolutely. And so,
Yeah.
I confided in him about what I was going through with my daughter's father. And it kind of gave him that avenue to kind of get in there when I was vulnerable. And so that was how he ended up kind of winning me in to a point where later on down the line we began to date. We started as best friends, and he would tell everybody I was his best friend and we were best friends, and that he would tell that
Mm.
story that we were best friends before we started dating. And so as best friends, I told him everything about me. And so he ended up using the things that I said as a kind of strategy to get me to this place of romance. And then the romance started.
Oh wow. So he utilized your situation to be able to connect with you.
Yes, yes.
I think they call that
Yes,
manipulation.
it very much so is manipulation, but
Yeah.
it's also other people's story. Normally when a person will tell you their testimony about domestic violence, when they
Yeah.
initially got with their abuser, they were in a bad situation themselves. And then it was just kind of like they were at a low point, and it was just easier for their abuser to kind of capture them in. Because, when we're at low
Right.
points, we're just we're searching for something.
So wait, how long did the domestic violence last? Like how long did it last? When did it start? Do you remember?
It started so collectively, I was with him. So we dated for a year, then we got married. Collectively, we were together for 13 years, married for 12.
Oh
And
wow.
so it started maybe almost immediately after we actually got married. And so I would say that it's about 12 years of domestic violence that I lived through.
Wow. I say that I'm interested in that because when I first got married, it kind of happened like that for me too. I think in my situation, I felt as if since I was so much younger that there was a slight bit of control there. And we both were young, but I was much younger still
Mm-hmm.
too, you know? And I felt like there was like that control when it was a feeling of I cannot control you, then that happened.
Yeah.
So when did you get out? What did you tell us a little bit about when you even realized that you were like, I'm in a domestic violence situation. Like this is not okay.
It brings me back to, so little things started to happen. So it's important. It's very important for people to realize the signs of domestic violence, and that a person could
Yes.
potentially, normally they don't start off just hitting you. It starts with little things like control. And so it's just small things like,
Hmm.
timing how long I went to the store. Like if the store
Yeah.
is 5 minutes down the road, you said you were just going to go get some milk. How were you gone for 30 minutes? Those kinds of things. And then, doing that, and then, telling me what I could wear and what I couldn't wear, where I could go. And I started to see these issues of control first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it hit me one day that I was in a really bad situation when his mother asked me to go to dinner with her. And I began to get dressed. I didn't tell him yet because I didn't think anything was wrong with me going to dinner with his mom. And so with his
Right.
mother. And so I got dressed, and he came into the room, and he was like, "Well, where are you going?" And I said, "Well, oh, your mom invited me to dinner. She just wants, to have the kind of like some bonding time with her daughter-in-law. We were going to go to dinner." And he told me, "Well, no, you're not going anywhere with her." And I said, "Well, why can't I go? You're leaving, you're going somewhere, and I'm just going to be here. Why can't I just go to dinner with your mother?" And long story short, he began to like after I tried to leave out the room to say, "Listen, I'm going to go to dinner with your mom," he began to barricade
Hmm.
the door. So we spent about an hour of me being barricaded in the room, and him making sure that I couldn't get out the door. And every time I would say, "Can you please move? I would like to get out the door," it was like, "You're not going anywhere. And so
Hmm.
it was, for some reason at that moment, something inside me clicked, like, oh my goodness, like this is not normal behavior.
Right.
And
Now, what year was this? Was this like year
so this was
one? Was
in
this
the
like,
first year of marriage, probably 3 months
right?
after we got married.
Wow. Man, there's so many similarities in that. I would say a few months after I got married, it was the same situation. I was going to my aunt's home, and the door was barricaded. You're not going anywhere. Where are you
Mm-hmm.
going? And me trying to get through the door kind of thing. And that is when it first happened, like the first us fighting happened. I would say that, it threw me for a loop. I never thought. Now, I would say that, things started shifting rather quickly when I first got married. But I never thought he would put his hands on me. And so it was the same situation. So from that time frame, when did that escalate to, okay, now I can't control you with blocking you in, or different things like that. So now I am going to be physical with you. When did that get to that point?
So I don't really know exactly when it got to that point, but I think the more
Mm-hmm.
that I started to see those behaviors, the more I started to speak up for myself. And
Yeah.
when I started to speak up for myself, it was then that the hitting
Mm.
began. And the first time he ever hit me, he was telling me he was telling me that another time that I wasn't going anywhere. And
Right.
so once I finally got away from, him barricading me, I tried to leave out the back door, and he pulled the back of my hair. And he
Oh my
turned around,
goodness.
and he hit me in the face with a closed fist. And immediately after he hit me, he began to start burst out into tears, like just tears. "I'm so sorry," because I think at that point it was like he knew that he messed up at
Mhm.
that time, but he
Yeah.
also knew how I was as a person. I'm a very It's hard for me to hold grudges, and that was a lot of my problem. Somebody can apologize to me for doing
Right.
something, and it's over for me. So he
Right.
began to cry, and it was just a narcissistic behaviors. And after that,
Mhm.
you know it comes the flowers and the gifts, and that's normal for people with
Right.
domestic violence situations. Their abuser will shower them the next day with gifts, and they're apologetic, and it may be
Right.
weeks or months before they hit you again, because at this point it is all about the behavior changes. It's all about proving to you that that was a mistake and I will never do that again, until the next time they decide to, and it only gets
Be
worse. It
abusive.
escalates. It's an
Yeah.
escalation process. So it went
Hmm.
from my situation, it went from hitting me in the face to, um, over the course of some time, to punching me in the stomach, to choking me, to very
Oh
extreme
my goodness.
situations of, you know, I remember one time he took a picture off the wall and threw it on the ground, and then he took my foot. I was barefoot because the glass was all over the floor, and he took my foot and he pressed it into the glass, trying to cut my
Hmm.
feet up.
And so you stated that you were in this marriage for about 13 years. Was that
So the
correct? About
marriage for 12,
13?
and we were together for 13. Yes.
Well, for 13, right. Did you all have children in the household when this was going on? Because I know there's some people out there that said, hey, I'm going through it, and I have children, I can't leave, or something's going on. I want to know like the strength behind you, because I know that now you're out of that
Yes.
situation, and we're protecting your identity the way that we're doing this, Tia. And again, I cannot thank you enough for wanting to speak up and help some women out there, or people who are just getting over the residue and
Yes.
the emotional trauma of it, because I know that there's emotional trauma with that,
Absolutely.
right? That takes years to
Oh,
get rid
yeah.
of. So yeah, so can you just talk to me about like how you got out of that? Like what
So the children,
for
the
somebody else?
children were present a lot of the times. I tried to protect my children as much as I could from what they saw. So a lot
Oh
of the
yeah.
times when I knew that something was, when I knew that he was going to, because at some point when your abuser is going to be aggressive. So I would put the children in the
Yeah.
room. I'd lock the door. I'd turn the TV up or the radio up really loud. I tried my best
Mm-hmm.
to protect their eyes for what they would see, but it was hard because they were inside of the home with us.
Right.
And I
Right.
was afraid. There's a couple of times when I tried to leave him because, of the children. I didn't want my children to be raised in this environment where, they were seeing this. And I tried.
Yeah. Are you there? Yes. Hopefully, it looks like we're having a bad connection. Hopefully, T is able to join back in just a moment, to finish out what I am just so excited that she decided to do this and to help someone else. Are we
We
back,
are back.
Tia?
Okay.
Okay, thank
I'll pick up where
you.
I left. So when I tried to
Yeah.
leave because I didn't want the children to be in this environment, because I seen how it was affecting them. While they were
Mm-hmm.
younger, they didn't know how to verbalize to me what they were experiencing. So I started to see it in their behaviors. So children, when they can't express themselves, they act out in behaviors. And I started to see those behaviors, and I tried to leave, and he pulled a gun in my face, and he said, "If you get up and walk away, I'm gonna shoot you in the back
Oh
of the head."
wow.
And
Wow.
so, and there was many of those incidents of the fear that I felt to leave, because it was extreme. It was, I'll kill your mother, I will kill you. Even
Gee.
I tried to leave one time, and was at my friend's house, and he showed up there. He showed up at my job. My job was at one point on alert for him. They had a picture of him at the front desk, and said, "If you see this man around here, you are to call 911."
Yeah.
But I still was very fearful. I tried to get out several times, and a couple of times I did. But sadly to say, when you have spent so much time in this abusive relationship, and you are, because a part of domestic violence situations is a lot of mental abuse as well. So you're being
Yeah.
told You have all these kids. No man will ever want you. How are you going to take care of these
Mm-hmm.
children by yourself? Because if you leave, I won't give you a penny. Um, you're
Right.
living here in Georgia. You're all by yourself. You don't have any family here. It's just me, you.
Who's gonna help you? What are you
Who's
gonna
going to help you?
do?
What
Where
are
are
you
you
going to
gonna
do?
go?
Nobody's ever going to believe
Yeah.
the things that you're saying, and people are only going
Mm-hmm.
to help you but for so long. Like, you're a grown woman, you need to know how to take care of yourself. And so those things stick with you, and you start to,
Yeah.
think to yourself, how am I going to do this? I was terrified. I had 4 children, and how am I going to take care of 4 children alone by myself with
Yeah.
just my income? I was terrified. And
So what did you do? What made you come to the realization that, this isn't getting any better? This lifestyle for me and my children is not a good one. What was the breaking point? And what did you do at that breaking point?
Tammy, to be frank, I just got completely exhausted. And I
Yeah.
started to get to a point where I didn't care if I lived anymore. So I got to a point where
Mm.
it was like, I'd rather just be dead than to live like this. And this is the dark parts of, and this is where I say the enemy comes in,
Yes.
because
Talk about that. Talk about
the
that.
enemy comes in because people that experience abuse this way are very isolated. And if the
Mm-hmm.
enemy can get you isolated, he can do a number on you in your mind. So the enemy began to place all these thoughts, because you got to understand, I wasn't telling anybody about what was going on with me. I went
No.
to work every day with the biggest smile on my face. My personality remained the same. And I also was just so happy to be at work and out of my home that, I
Yeah.
was just, vibrant. People didn't know, but they started to notice the marks on me, because there's only so many excuses you can make for having
Right.
black eyes and bruises and everything on you. But you're very isolated. You're embarrassed. You don't want to tell people what's going on with you, because, there's that
Mm-hmm.
judgment. Why would you stay with
Right.
somebody like that? And you just feel like people don't understand. And you also,
Eventually they did know though, right? Because there was a alert at your job. So
so this was
eventually,
around, so at some point I got pulled into the office at my job, and they said
okay.
to me, you can't hide this anymore. We know what's going on with you. Because he would also be,
Mm,
I would think that I was hiding something. He'd be outside of my job yelling at me, and people would see from the inside. And so they put 2 and 2 together, and they understood at
mm,
some point. But there was a point where nobody knew, that I thought they didn't know. And so I
right.
felt very isolated. And in that isolation, the devil just put all these thoughts in my head. Like, you're never going to get out of this situation. This is your life.
Hmm.
This is what it is.
Oh yeah, he does
And
that.
all that manipulation, and you feel you'd be better off dead. But when you for me, I got so tired of the enemy coming into my home and into my head. And I think it was one day I was just sitting back, and I was looking at my children, and it was almost like your life and everything that has happened in your life just kind of flashes right before you. And I was just in
Yeah.
deep thought, and I thought to myself, you know, I started thinking of my childhood, because I was thinking of happier times. Like, when were you happy? And I started thinking
Hmm.
of my childhood, and I was raised in church. And
Come
so
on.
when I was thinking of my childhood and how happy I was, and how my parents, we were in church, and we learned about the word of God. We had Bible studies and things like that. And it clicked, and it dawned on me, like, you forgot about God, the God that you serve. You've been stuck in this
Yes.
situation all this time. And you haven't even, because I'm going to be honest, I, for a long time, didn't even, the situation was so dark that I forgot about God. It wasn't even a thought in my head.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
when it says, the Bible says, train your child up in the way that they should go, and when they leave, they will.
Mhm.
That is a true
Not part from it.
statement, and I
Yes.
live by that every day with my children. That no matter what,
Yes.
I don't care if they go astray when they get older, they will, because I came back. So that's how I know that that's a fact. So I just started to think about that, and then that's when I said, I got to get deeper in the word. I got to get back to reading my Bible. I have to, start praying more, because you get so weak you can't even pray. You're thinking, how could
Right.
this be happening to me? How could God let this happen to me? And these are the thoughts that the enemy will give
Right.
you. And I started to saturate myself in the word of God. What else could I do? I had no friends.
Mm-hmm.
I was completely isolated. So I
In
started
that place.
saturating myself
Yeah.
in the word of God. He didn't like me reading my Bible. So even when I would start to read my Bible, I think, I started to get more inspired, and he didn't like that. So I started to talk to God myself with, in my mind, in my head, just praying where he
Mm-hmm.
couldn't, there was nothing he could do about that. And then I got the strength enough to say, enough is enough. I will not raise my children in this environment anymore. And I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to step out on faith. I don't care what happens. Me and my children are getting out of this situation. And my faith just took over
Yeah.
at that point. And it was just like, when I left, he left and went to another state. And
Mm-hmm.
he thought that he was hurting me by doing that after I left. But God didn't. When I tell you, Tami, I didn't miss a beat. When I tell you, I had 4 kids.
He's so good.
He
Come
had
on, just
4
get to it.
kids.
Let them know how
Oh
good
my
he
gosh, let me
is.
tell you something. When I got out of that situation, I had just had my youngest son. He was 2 months old.
Mm-hmm.
2 months old, and I was on maternity leave at work, so I had no income coming in. When I got out of that situation, I had a 2-month-old, a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
and a 9-year-old. When I tell you,
Mm-hmm.
God didn't let me skip a beat. It was like I had all these things that I needed to figure out on my
Yes.
own. And it was like, in
Yes.
chronological order, God just started, here's the babysitter. I had a babysitter, and she charged me $50 a week for 2 of my children to go there. And it was
My goodness.
that's a long story, but
He always gives a way
it's a
out,
way
though,
out. Oh my
right?
gosh.
He always gives a way out. I want to say that more than once, because
Yes.
people have to understand that there are so many different scenarios, and we're just talking about domestic violence on this segment. But my situation, even with living in a homosexual lifestyle for years, over 14 years altogether, but committing in a relationship for 10 and a half years, and you feel like, where am I gonna go? Who gonna be with
Yes.
me? I've been, what? I've built this. My kids, are in this situation, and you just feel like at a point where, like you said, you just don't want to live
Yes.
anymore. You don't want to fight. You don't have any fight left. But let me tell somebody out there, God, Jesus, the Messiah, he always gives you a
Yes.
way out.
Yes.
It's up to you if you take that opportunity. But let me tell you, he will give you a way out of any and every
Yes.
situation. I'm sorry I had to say
No,
that.
it's
I
true.
had to say that. I didn't want to skip over that.
It is so true, because I didn't skip a beat. When I look back at that time, that place and time, I thought to
Mm-hmm.
myself, wow, like, it still amazes me to this day. It's still amazing. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, that was 10 years ago that I got out, because my son is 10. So, you
Yes.
know, we
Yes.
haven't, let me tell you, I didn't skip a beat, and I'm still not skipping a beat. Like, God
I love it.
continuously has carried me and my children. I live in Atlanta. My family lives in Louisiana. When I tell you it's me and the children here, it's me and my children, and that is
Mm-hmm.
it. You
Yes.
know? And so,
Yes.
I always say, with the help of God, I am a single mother. I don't complain. My kids are taken care of. And me and God do this together.
Yes, yes, I love it. So that takes me to the next
Mm-hmm.
question. So this is called Overcoming with Purpose, right? This edition.
Yes.
And so what do you believe? Because now I know you do great things. I'm gonna let you talk about it. I'm overjoyed just to be here with you because I'm like, God, you just a bad
Yeah,
God. You just
absolutely.
do it all
Yes.
good. So and the things that I see you do for the church and then also for the community, please elaborate on, how he sustained and then pushed you on to purpose.
Well, he got me into my ministry. God, I was supposed to work with the elderly
Yes.
because it dates back from when I was younger. I know what God, when you have clarity in your mind, when you get into the word of God gives you clarity,
Hmm.
and you begin
Yeah.
to, like, ask God, like, what is my purpose? Like, what is my God-given purpose? And all this time I was
Hmm.
doing what I'm doing now. Even when I was in a domestic violence situation, I was working with the elderly.
Hmm.
I've been doing that for over 18 years.
Oh wow. Okay.
But I was able to, once I got out of this situation and my connection with God got stronger, things became more clear for me. And so I was able to then really live out that purpose that God has for me with
Yes.
these senior citizens. This is
Yes.
ministry work that I do with these seniors. It is ministry
Yes.
work. I would never want to do anything else. I work with seniors. I'm a program director with seniors. I actually would like to tell you that I just got a promotion from being a program director now for the company to being a regional program liaison. So now, not only,
God shows up and shows out all the
yes,
time.
not only am I a program director in the community that I am at now the company has placed me over all four of the communities, the senior living communities within our company in the Georgia region. So I'm over all of these
Yes.
programs in four different communities now. So God has continuously just elevated me to different levels. And
Yes.
I cannot, it amazes me all the time. The things that he has
Oh my
done
goodness.
for me, and the creativity and everything that he gives me to pour out to these seniors, it amazes me.
I see it. I see it and I love it. And I know we've been talking and I don't want to go too much over our time, but I want to make sure that if there's anything that you want to say out there to some men, women, whomever may have been in this situation or dealing with residue, or they're in this situation and they don't know what to do and they're in that dark place, what would you say to that person? You've been there, you've been in that dark place. What do you say?
I would say if you're struggling with domestic violence, just know that you're not alone. I know it feels like you're stuck in this place and you can't see past, like, right
Yes.
now, but there is a future for you.
Hmm.
You are not isolated. Go to God, talk to God. Do not allow the enemy to flood your thoughts with all of these, different thoughts that you can't be anything outside of this situation, because, like the testimony that I just told you, if I can do this, trust me, I left with
Yes.
nothing. I'm telling you, I left with nothing. If I can do this, you could. You're not alone. All you have to do is just get enough courage to get out, walk away, and there's a whole nother side of life awaiting for you. And just keep your faith in God, and I promise He'll provide everything you need.
Yes. Yes, Tia. Oh my goodness. Thank you
You
so
are
very
welcome.
much.
Thank
I really
you.
so appreciate this. And I know the people out there appreciate you just telling your story and letting them know that this is what I went through. And I was in a marriage and you had children and all of those things. But God definitely reshaped, reformed your life, gave you the strength to move on. And now you're walking and living in purpose.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about. That is what it's all about. We all overcome. I want to say this, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. right? And so we're going to just talk about it. We're going to let the world know about what it is that God has done for us as individuals who serve the mighty God, Jesus, right? We're going to let people know about it. And I thank you so, so much. Until next time, y'all, on the next edition of Tami Talk Too Much on Testimony Edition. We will talk later. Bye. Bye.